It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. Thanks for joining us. If you've caught us live on our website, that's great news. I'm glad to see you out there. I see quite a few folks out there this morning. Various areas of the country, Fort Wayne, Lincoln, that's Nebraska, I believe, Forney, and Huntington, and Texas. I see folks out there on the East Coast, West Coast. Thanks for joining with us. If you're catching us live on Patriot FB, that's great news. Can't encourage you strongly enough to join Patriot FB and constitutionclub.ning.com. These are websites that basically replicate the Facebook type format, but enable you to meet other similarly minded Americans who are frankly concerned about the state of, or the state of our disunion, I guess I should say. Good morning. It's Monday, and we are going to kick off today with a rather interesting series of topics. L.A. has come out, the sheriff of L.A. County has come out and made some pretty startling admissions, not the least of which is that they admit that for a period in 2012, they flew civilian surveillance technology. You got to say that 4 times fast. They flew civilian surveillance technology over the Compton area of California, and they caught high-resolution video of everything that occurred and happened inside of that 10-square-mile municipality. And they did so for an extended period of time. They didn't tell the residents about it, and they didn't because they knew they would get pushback. And I got to tell you, they're admitting openly now that they were utilizing this wide area surveillance. And essentially, the people in Compton were, for all intents and purposes, no different than the people in occupied Afghanistan or occupied Iraq or any other nation. You see, here's the problem, folks. They're trying to, over a period of time, as with all tyranny, it's done in incremental steps. They knew that if they just came out tomorrow morning and said, look, we're declaring martial law, everybody's got to turn in your guns, everything that you do is monitored and tracked, they would have a revolt on their hands. Even those fence sitters, even those people who ordinarily agree with the government on most things, as long as there's something in it for them, would be up in arms. I mean, let's be candid. It's the folks on the left who are the most incensed about the NSA surveillance and the monitoring of everything that we do, right? I mean, the Republicans are the ones who are putting that stuff in place. It's the folks on the left who are arguing about it or against it. So in that case, we're allies. But you have to realize exactly what's happening here. This is nothing more than an activity or an action that is designed to acclimate you to 100% total access surveillance, what I call TASS. See, this total access surveillance enables them to monitor everything about you all the time. In other words, it's reality TV for government. I mean, Hollywood's not good enough anymore now. They want to see real unscripted live American reality TV. It's amazing to me that these people who are allegedly supposed to be public servants and in charge of law enforcement, actually, there was a Sergeant Douglas Ikitani who acknowledges that the agency hid the experiment from the public, and specifically with the intent to avoid public opposition and criticism. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a crime. I don't care what else you call it, it's a crime. This system was kind of kept confidential from everybody in the public, he said. A lot of people do have a problem with an eye in the sky, the big brother. So to mitigate those kinds of complaints, we've basically kept it pretty hush-hush. Huh? Ladies and gentlemen, that's an admission that should have Sergeant Douglas Ikitani under arrest right now, held without bail. End of argument. He later on went on to explain that, I'm sure that once people find out this experiment went on, they might be a little upset. But knowing that we can't see into their bedroom windows, that we can't see into their pools, we can't see into their showers, I'm sure they'll be okay with it. With the amount of technology out in today's age, with cameras and ATMs at every 7-Eleven, at every supermarket, pretty much every light pole, all the license plate cameras, the red light cameras, people have just gotten used to being watched. Excuse me. No, we haven't. And for you to make the assumption that it's okay because mission creep has been underway for decades now, that it's okay to violate the law just because it's the general consensus and we've been pushing this for years, so now you should just be acclimated to it, is another crime. One that should have your badge removed permanently. You see, ladies and gentlemen, where we are is in a police state. You live in one right now. You're just not officially notified because the 6 or 8 companies that own basically all the media refuse to tell you the truth. That's it. It's as simple as that. Everything else that you hear is propaganda. The truth is, we live in a police state. You are subjected to total monitoring. You are subjected to any abuse that any agent of the government, whether that be your state, your city, your county, your local governments, or your federal government, chooses to apply to you. The rules don't apply to them. They only apply to you, the peasantry. It's that simple. If they were in fact applicable across the board, this guy would be currently in prison awaiting a charge. It's that easy, folks. He would be in jail right now awaiting a charge for a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Not standing around doing press conferences explaining how he's violated the law and it's okay to do so. And you should and will get used to it. All right, our second segment this morning is going to be Boehner has one chance to redeem himself on this Benghazi thing. He is subpoenaing or putting together a special committee or a select committee. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what the limitations or the capabilities are of a select or special committee. Because it's important for you to understand that this is going to be either the make or the break on whether or not we actually ever get the truth on Benghazi. And it all falls down to John Boehner, because Boehner can set the rules by which the committee can operate. And that, ladies and gentlemen, means that he wields way too much authority. You see, it shouldn't be a function of John Boehner determining what the rules are for a select committee, whether they do or do not have subpoena power, whether they can haul these individuals that would be hostile witnesses, if you will, into the fray, whether or not they can get and haul people who were actually on the ground that night as witnesses into the fray, whether or not they can expose documentation, whether all of this is going to be done in secret behind closed doors under some alleged argument that it will threaten national security. Because the truth of the matter is, what America needs to know is that Benghazi was all about gun running. And I have to tell you, I'm very deeply concerned that that is ever going to get out. Our third topic, federal land grabs that are on the way right now are threatening not only what's been going on with Nevada and over at the Bundy Ranch and so forth, but there is an entire list, a laundry list of properties and areas in the country that many people believe that are going to be designated as national monument status because the BLM can't get control of the land any other way. So what we're seeing is more federal usurpation and dictatorial statements by the president that he can unilaterally snatch millions and millions of acres from public property and designate them as a monument, which of course puts them under federal domain. Ladies and gentlemen, that should be met with the same level of resistance within state and other militias that we saw with the Bundy Ranch. And I'm not kidding. Our fourth and final topic will be arms trafficking by the national government is a criminal enterprise. And it's about time that we began to acknowledge what's really happening here. The United States of America and the government that is in charge of it at this point has become the world's largest trafficker in arms. And here's the problem. They're durable. After this is a statement from the New York Times, which stunningly enough actually put this out. But here's the problem with it. When you have a federal government that is outselling weaponry across the board to whatever, resistance of the day is their pet friend, after that's over, then what happens? Because the weapons that we're seeing and we're fighting against right now in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, those are the same weapons that were sold back in the 80s and the 90s, maybe even the 70s. The problem is that guns don't wear out. And when our national government is using this stuff to advance their daily position, not concerned about what the future will look like in a week or a year or 10 years or 20 or 30 years, and meanwhile fighting tooth and nail to strip you of your right to own a weapon, I mean, the irony should be clear to everyone. Let's jump into our first topic, because I got to tell you, this issue with LA County is stunning to me. This was a secret test of mass surveillance technology. Now, this came out of the Atlantic. Now, the Atlantic is a decidedly left-wing progressive rag. And here's how their program starts. This is the future if nothing is done to stop it. That's the way that the Atlantic describes the recent Big Brother tactic that was used by LA County sheriffs to police areas like Compton. The people in Compton were left completely and totally unaware. They had no idea that this was happening. And the cops literally, here's their statement. I mean, it's not me. A lot of people do have a problem with the eye in the sky, the Big Brother. So to mitigate those kinds of complaints, we basically kept it pretty hush-hush. We literally watched all of Compton during the times that we were flying. So we could zoom in anywhere within the city of Compton and follow cars and see people. Here's the problem. That, ladies and gentlemen, is surveillance drones that we're seeing in use in foreign war zones. And when you have a national government and a state government, frankly, that is willing to do that to its own people and and knows that the pushback will be there, but does it anyway, but does it secretly, that's a crime. It's a crime because it's a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. It's a crime because government is abusing its authority, misusing its power. That's called an abuse of power. It's a legal term. It's an actual charge that can be levied against a politician or anyone in a position of authority that abuses that authority. And there's absolutely no doubt about it that the LA Sheriff's Department abused its authority here. This happened back in 2012. And this was first unearthed by the Center for Investigative Reporting, which is, I mean, you know, all of these actual real journalists who exist in the world, none of them are employed by major corporations because they're not allowed to. You know, the technology that this company called Persistent Surveillance Systems is selling to police departments all over America is a crime in and of itself. I posted up this morning that again, and this is a tragedy. Vigilant Corporation, which we exposed about, a couple of weeks ago, in reference to the license plate tracking technology, actually forces the law enforcement people to sign a non-disclosure agreement that they have to swear silence about who the company is because they want to be on the down low. Really? They're tracking and monitoring every license plate they can get their hands on. They're relinquishing this information to police departments with no probable cause or reason to believe that the millions upon hundreds of millions of plates that they've captured have actually committed a crime. And here's what their agreement that law enforcement has to sign says. Here it is. This will stun you. You shall not create, publish, distribute, or permit any written, electronically transmitted, or other form of publicity material that makes reference to Learn, that's the name of the technology, or this agreement without first submitting the material to Learn NVLS and receiving written consent from Learn NVLS. This prohibition is specifically intended to prohibit users from cooperating with any media outlet to bring attention to Learn or Learn NVLS. Breach of this provision may result in Learn NVLS immediate termination of this agreement upon notice to you. Now, Learn stands for Law Enforcement Archival and Reporting Network, and it's this company Vigilance online portal where they can go in and, pull up license plate data and images that are aggregated, analyzed, and, sorted and whatever. I want you to understand the implications of a statement like that. This prohibition is specifically intended to prohibit users from cooperating with any media outlet to bring attention to Learn or Learn NVLS. Now, I got to tell you, that, first of all, any law enforcement officer or agency that would sign that agreement has betrayed the spirit and the nature of their relationship and their roles of responsibility towards their citizenry. Because, you see, they're being gagged. It's a gag order, and it's a willfully agreed to gag order. No law enforcement agency should ever be gagged from being able to expose something that is going on in their community to their citizenry, who they owe their first and only allegiance to. Now, for the record, you need to know this. This is out in Wired Technology, by the way, which is an extraordinarily well-respected magazine on technology. Now, here's an amazing thing. Civil liberties groups exposed this issue, and here's the amazing part. On May 2nd, well, first of all right, let me just quantify it by saying that on May 2nd, Vigilant was exposed in these articles, a series of articles that was written about them. And since the story was published, they've posted a new terms of service document that eliminates that original wording about the reason for prohibiting law enforcement from talking to media about its database. Instead of saying the restriction is specifically intended to prohibit users from cooperating with any media to bring attention to the database, the new agreement reads, this restriction is specifically intended to protect the user's interests in divulging information that may result in countermeasures from the criminal elements, and this is also to protect Vigilant's competitive interests and ensure consistency with other media messaging. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a statement of antitrust. And it's a statement of collusion. And any law enforcement agency that will sign that is agreeing that they are colluding with an independent corporation against the protection of their own citizenry. You know, I exposed the other 2 weeks ago, and I gave you the address for Vigilant, and I said that Americans should be protesting en masse outside of Vigilant's headquarters, finding any dirt you can find on their executives. If you knew this executive XYZ who works over at Vigilant and you went to college and partied with him, expose him in the papers. I'm telling you, America, it's time to fight back, and it's time to fight back in any way, shape, and form that we can within the boundaries of good moral conscience and law. And it is time for this America to say, we're going to utilize the same dirty tactics that they use on us. All of it's lawful. You can sit there and give out an interview that says, yeah, I remember I went to college with XYZ, the head of Vigilant, and, he had a problem with drugs, or he had a problem with drinking. I don't know whether he did or not. I'm just saying we need, and it's not limited to Vigilant. Every one of these major corporations, Harris Corporation is another one. If they're going to sell you out, then it's time for you to fight back with everything and every arrow in your quiver. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot accept this. We cannot tolerate it. We cannot willingly allow this to happen. Your silence is your acquiescence and agreement. And I'm telling you, in the eyes of the law, the silence of Americans is speaking volumes. Because every time you're silent, they move forward another giant step. That's the truth. And everything else you hear is lies and propaganda. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to tackle our second topic, which is that John Boehner is now going to appoint a special select committee. Well, he's got one opportunity here to pull himself out of the fray. And for the record, his reputation and his own standing in his native Ohio is falling for him right now. I got to tell you, this is his one chance to show America that he's not a traitor. He better make these rules hard and fast, and he better make them harsh. We want full disclosure, and nothing else will do. You're listening to America's Voice Now. We'll be right back.